All right, so I'm going to do one from each type. So the first page says solve each system by elimination. So looking at number 1. Do I have the same number but opposites? No. So can we make them the same? Which one do you want to make the same? X's or Y's? Sure. What do we need to multiply to the X's? 2. Perfect. Because we have a -6, we also want a +6. I'm going to rewrite it right below. So this turns into 6x plus 10y is equal to 2. Do the x's cancel now?
You minus 10y.
So what's -10y plus 10y? 0. And what's 14 plus 2? What happened to our variables? They went away. So does 0 equal 16? So what's our answer? No solution. All right, let's go to the next page. All right, so let's continue to go over the review. I'm going to kind of jump around because I don't think we'll have time to do everything. So if there's a question on a page that you want me to do, I'll go back to it. But let's look at number 3. All right, for 3, do we have the same number but opposites? That'll cancel out. No, so we got to make them the same. So what would we need to multiply to make them the same? -2. What do you want to cancel, the x's or the y's? Sure, the x's. So we're going to multiply everything by -2. So when we multiply this by -2, I'm going to rewrite it down below because it helps when you line it up. So we have -14x minus 6y is equal to 0. Do the x's cancel now? Yep. What's 6y minus 6y? 0. And then 0 plus 0. What do we get when we have 0 equals 0? Infinitely many solutions. Infinitely many. So if you get 0 equals 0, infinitely many solutions. You don't have to keep solving. You're done. So it's only when both the variables cancel out. Any questions? All right, number 5. Do we have the same number but opposites? No. So let's make them the same. What do you want to cancel, the x's or the y's? Let's do the y's. All right, so we have a -20. Can we multiply -10 by something to make it +20? -2. So here we have 16x plus 20y is equal to -12. So I'm going to rewrite the first equation below it just to make it easier for us to add. For these questions, it's really helpful when you're organized. For the elimination and substitution, I think looking at the quizzes, a lot of people's work was kind of all over the place and you kind of got lost in the question. So it's helpful when you're organized. What happens to the x's? They cancel. What about the y's? They also cancel. So we're left with 0 on the left side because everything canceled. What's -12 plus 12? 0. So what do we get when 0 equals 0? Infinitely many solutions. Any questions? Are there any other questions you guys wanted to see from the first page? So number 7, we're going to solve by substitution. So for substitution, we need to isolate one of our variables. We need either an x equals or y equals. Do I have that in number 7? No. So we have to make one of them x equals or y equals. Which equation do you want to make? The first one. Would it be easier to make it x equals or y equals? X, because the x already has a coefficient of 1. So it's almost all by itself. We just have to move the y to the other side. So how would we move the y to the other side? Add 8y. So we do the opposite. Since it's being minus 8y, we add 8y. So we have x is equal to 1 plus 8y. Now that x is all by itself, we can substitute that into our other equation. So we're going to take what x is equal to and substitute it into x in the second equation. So negative 3 times 1 plus 8y minus 6y is equal to negative 3. What would we do next? Distribute. So what's negative 3 times 1? And negative 3 times 8y? Negative 24y minus 6y is equal to negative 3. What would we do next? Combine like terms. How? So what is negative 24 minus 6? Negative 30. So we have negative 3 minus 30y is equal to negative 3. What would we do next? Add 3 to the other side. So negative 30y is equal to 0. What do we do next? Divide by negative 30. So what does y equal? 0. 0 divided by 30 is 0. So that's one of our answers. What would we do to find x now? Plug in the y. So I'm going to take y is equal to 0 and substitute that into the y. I'm going to do the first equation. So x minus 8 times 0 is equal to 1. So x minus 0 equals 1. So what does x equal? What does x equal? 1. How would we write our answer? 1 comma 0. Remember, it's the x and then the y. All right, let's go to the next page. So here we have to solve using substitution. So substitution, we need to isolate one of our variables in one of the problems. So let's do number 9. All right, so do we have an x equals or y equals? No. So we got to make it. What do you want to make it? X equals or y equals? The first one? You want to solve for x or y? What do you want to do for the first one? Y. We want to make it y equals. Y is a good choice because it's already just y. We have no number in front of it. So anytime you have a variable with no coefficient, that's the one that you want to solve for. So we're going to subtract 6x to the other side. So we have y is equal to negative 1 minus 6x. So now we're going to take what y is equal to and substitute it into y in the other equation. So negative 6x minus 4. Now into the y spot, we're going to put negative 1 minus 6x is equal to 4. What would we do next to solve? Distribute the negative 4. So we have negative 6x. What's negative 4 times negative 1? Positive 4. And negative 4 times negative 6x? Positive 24x. What would we do next? Bless you. Combine like terms. So we have negative 6x and 24x, which would be 18x. And then let's move the 4 to the other side. So if the x's are on the left side, let's move the numbers to the right. What's 4 minus 4? 0. What would we do next? Divide by 18. So x is equal to 0. So x is equal to 0. That is a solution. In the past, people would think that because you get 0, it's no solution, but you still have an x. X is equal to 0. 0 is a number. So we found x. How would we find y? Awesome. We're going to plug in 0 into the x. So we have 6 times 0 plus y minus is equal to negative 1. What's 6 times 0? 0. So y is equal to negative 1. How would we write our answer? 0 comma negative 1. Perfect. All right, let's look at 11. So again, we want to solve with substitution. It told us to solve with substitution. So what do we want to make it x equals or y equals in which equation? X equals in which one? The first equation or second? The second. We already have an x with no coefficient in front. It's just an x, so that's the one that we want to solve for. So we want to add 4y to the other side. So x is equal to 4y minus 3. Once we get x all by itself, we're going to take what it's equal to and plug it in. We're plugging it into the x since it's x equals. So negative 3 times 4y minus 3 plus 12y is equal to 9. What would we do next? Distribute. So negative 12y plus 9 plus 12y is equal to 9. What's next? Combine like terms. What's negative 12y plus 12y? 0. They cancel out. And then we can move the 9 to the other side if we want, but we end up with 9 equals 9. If you wanted to subtract it over, you'd end up with 0 equals 0. So what would our answer here be? Infinitely many solutions. Perfect. Awesome. So our variables ended up canceling out. So our answer would be infinitely many solutions. Any questions here? Do we feel good with substitution, or you want to see any other ones you want to see on this page? 10? Let's do 10. All right, so here, do we want to make it x equals or y equals? So my suggestion would be look for the variable that doesn't have a number in front. Which one doesn't have a number in front? The y. So we want to make it y equals. So I'm going to move the 2x to the other side. So we're going to subtract 2x. So we have y is equal to negative 3 minus 2x. So since we made it y equals, we're going to take what y is equal to and substitute it into the y in the other equation. So negative 6x minus 3, then times negative 3 minus 2x is equal to negative 2. Any questions? Oh, what would we do next? Distribute. So we're going to distribute the negative 3 to everything inside the parentheses. So negative 6x plus 9 plus 6x is equal to negative 2. What would we do next? Combine like terms. So negative 6x plus 6x cancels. So we have 9 is equal to negative 2. Does 9 equal negative 2? So what would our answer here be? No solution. All right, so here we're going to solve the system by graphing. Let's do number 1. So we're going to solve each system by graphing. So in our first equation, we're just graphing the first line. So what's our slope?
5x.
5. And what's our b or y-intercept? Negative 2. So we want to put a point at negative 2 first. And then how do I show the slope of 5? Up 5 over 1. So up 5 and to the right 1. And then we're going to connect our points. Now let's graph our second line. What's our slope in the second line?
-1.
-1. And what's our y-intercept? 4. So I'm going to put a point at 4. How do I show the slope of -1?
Down 1 to the right 1.
Down 1 and to the right 1. So down 1 to the right 1, down 1 to the right 1. Connect our points. Now our answer when we solve by graphing is where our two lines intersect. Where do our lines intersect?
1, 3.
1, comma 3. All right, next page. Let's do a graphing one. Let's look at 3. So we just want to solve one equation at a time. So let's start with the first one. What's our slope? -1/4. And then what's our y-intercept, our b? -3. So we start by putting a point at our y-intercept, which is at -3. And how do I do the slope of -1/4? Which direction am I going? Down 1 and to the right 4. So we'd go down 1 and to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we can connect our dots. Now we have x equals 4. So I'm going to go to my x-axis, put a point at 4, and then I draw a line that goes through the x-axis since it's x equals. Where do my two lines intersect? What's that point? 4, -3. Oh, 4, -4, sorry. You're right. 4, -4. So there was a question on the quiz where it gave you the graph. It graphed it for you. All you need to do is look at the graph and find where the two lines intersect, and that is your solution. So there were quite a few people that got that question wrong on the quiz. Just look at the graph, find where they intersect. Some people tried to solve it with the equations that were given. But if it's graphed for you, find where they intersect. That's your answer. Questions? All right. Let's do number 4. So 4 is not in y equals mx plus b form, but we can make it in y equals mx plus b. So let's rearrange it. So if x plus 3y is equal to 9. How would I make this y equals mx plus b? I want to make it y equals. So what would I need to do? Move the x over. Perfect. So I have 3y is equal to -x plus 9. And then what? Divide by 3. So y is equal to -1/3x plus 9 divided by 3 is 3. So we just divided everything by 3. So now let's graph this equation. What's our slope? -1/3. And what is our y-intercept? 3. So let's put our y-intercept first on our graph. Then how do we do the slope of -1/3? Go down 1 and to the right 3. So down 1 and to the right 3. So now we can connect our points. And let's do the second line. Any questions with our first one? So the second one, we also want to put it in y equals mx plus b form. So we're going to do the same thing, subtract the x. So 3y is equal to -x minus 6. And then divide everything by 3. So y is equal to -1/3 minus 2. Our slope here would be -1/3. And our y-intercept is what? -2. So what would I put first on my graph? a point at -2, and then I'm going to do the slope of -1/3. So I go down 1 and to the right 3. So down 1 to the right 3. And we can make another point going in the opposite direction, so you can go up 1 and to the left 3. And we connect our dots. Do our graphs intersect? So what do you think our answer is? No solution. Awesome. No solution. So this first one, number 3, is an example of where we have one solution. Number 4 is an example where we have no solution. If your two lines never intersect, it'd be no solution. What if we graphed them and they were the same exact line? What do you think our answer would be? Infinitely many solutions. Awesome. So just in case you see one like that on the test Monday, but graph it and it's exactly the same line, it'd be infinitely many solutions. So here we're going to solve each system by substitution. Any one specifically on this page you want to see? 7 through 10? Let's do 10. Were you going to say 10 or a different number? 10? Okay, perfect. So number 10, we're solving with substitution. Do I have an x equals or y equals? We have a y equals. Perfect. So we already have a y equals. We don't need to rearrange it. Let's take what y is equal to and substitute it into the y in the other equation. So we have 4x minus 4x plus 5 is equal to -5. Dylan, what would we do next to solve? Awesome. Distribute the negative. So we have 4x minus 5 is equal to -5. What do we do next? Combine like terms. What's 4x minus 4x? 0. They cancel out. It'd be 0x, which is just 0. So if you had like 4x minus 3x, that would be 1x, so then that would be x. But if they're the same number, they cancel out. So we're left with -5 is equal to -5. So what happens when we run out of variables? Everything cancels. What's our answer? Infinitely many. When you have the same number equals the same number, it'd be infinitely many solutions. Let's do 8. Do we have an x equals or a y equals? Yep, so we're going to solve with substitution. So we're going to take what y is equal to. So I'm just going to take the first equation and plug it into the y in the second equation. So we have 4x plus 7 is equal to -4x minus 1. So let's solve for x. What do you want to do? What should we do to solve for x? Add the 4x. So I'm going to add 4x to move it to the left side. If we're moving our x's to the left, that means I want to move my numbers to the other side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract 7 to move the numbers to the right side. So x's go on one side, constant numbers go on the other, so numbers without the x. What's 4x plus 4x? 8x is equal to, what's -1 minus 7? -8. What would we do next? Divide by 8. So x is equal to -1. Perfect. How do we solve for y now? Plug it into the x. We're going to take what x is equal to and substitute it in. So we have y is equal to 4 times -1 plus 7. So y is equal to -4 plus 7. What's -4 plus 7? What's -4 plus 7? 3. So how would we write our answer? negative 1 comma 3. Any questions here? Let's do 14. So 14 we're going to solve using elimination. Do we have the same number but opposites? Which variable, the x's or the y's? The y's. So we don't need to multiply them because they'll already cancel. So let's combine. So we're just adding the like terms together. What is negative 9x plus 6x? Negative 3x. Be super careful with your signs too. A lot of people made this mistake on the quiz where they just forgot a negative. So negative 9 plus 6 would be negative 3. And that threw off the whole rest of their answer. So just be careful with your signs. And 0 plus negative 6 would be negative 6. Then we divide by negative 3. So what does x equal? 2. How do we find y? Plug it in. So we're going to plug x back into x. So we have negative 9 times 2 minus 9y is equal to 0. What's negative 9 times 2? Negative 18 minus 9y is equal to 0. We're going to add 18 to move it to the other side. So negative 9y is equal to 18. Then what? Divide by negative 9. So y is equal to? Negative 2. How would we write our answer? 2 comma negative 2. All right, let's do 15. 15, do we have the same number but opposites? No. But how can we make them the same number but opposites? Which one do you want to cancel, the x's or the y's? The y's, because the y's are already the same number, but we just need a positive y and a negative y. So we need to do what to make one of them a negative y? What would we do? How would I change it to be a negative y? Multiply it by negative 1. So I'm going to multiply everything in the first equation by negative 1. So we have 3x minus y is equal to 0. What's negative 8x plus 3x? Negative 8 plus 3. Careful, negative 8 plus 3. Negative 5x. The y's cancel, and then 10 plus 0 would be 10. What do we do next? Divide by negative 5, so x is equal to negative 2. So how would we find y? Plug in negative 2. So I'm going to plug it into the x in the first one. Make sure you're just plugging into the right variable. So you have negative 3 times negative 2 plus y is equal to 0. What's negative 3 times negative 2? 6. So 6 plus y is equal to 0. Then what? Subtract 6. So y is equal to negative 6. How would we write our answer? Negative 2 comma negative 6. No, so we got to make them the same number but opposites. Which ones do you want to make the same number but opposites? The x's or the y's? Which one? Let's pick the x's because they're smaller numbers. Is there anything I can multiply to 2x to make it 3? Is there anything I can multiply to negative 3x to make it 2? No. So we'll probably have to do what? What do we need to do to make them the same number? Get them to 6. We need to multiply both equations to make them 6. So what do I need to do to multiply the first equation to make it 6? multiply it times 3. So my new first equation is going to be 6x minus 9y is equal to 3 times 12 would be 36. What do I need to do to multiply the second equation to make it to be negative 6? Times 2. So don't forget, if you see that you can't just multiply one equation to make them the same number but opposites, you can always multiply both. So we have negative 6x. This would be plus 8y is equal to 2 times negative 16 is negative 32. Do the x's cancel now? Yes, we have a 6x and a negative 6x. They cancel. Remember, they have to be the same number but opposite signs. What is negative 9y plus 8y? Negative 9y plus 8y. Negative y, perfect. And that's equal to, what's 36 minus 32? 4. So, are we done? No. What would we have to do next? Divide by negative. You got to make the y all by itself, so you got to get rid of that negative. So y is equal to negative 4. Now we can take what y is equal to and substitute that back in to y in one of our first equations. So I'm going to plug it into the first one. So 2x minus 3 times negative 4 is equal to 12. What would I do next? Multiply. What's negative 3 times negative 4? 12, and that's equal to 12. What would we do next? Subtract 12. So 2x is equal to 0. Then what? Divide by 2. So what does x equal? 0. So how would we write our answer? 0, negative 4. All right, one last thing that I want to do. Let's say we had an equation that was 2x plus 3y is equal to negative 6 and x plus 4y is equal to negative 3. And it said verify that 0, actually, let's make it 1, 0 is a solution. So we had 3 questions like this on the quiz, and some people, when they saw this question, they had no idea what to do. They started solving. I don't know. What do we do? How do I verify that 1, 0 is a solution? Plug it in. What am I going to plug in where? So plug 1 into x and 0 into y. So I have 2 times 1 plus 3 times 0 is equal to negative 6. So 3 times 0 is just 0. 2 times negative 1, or 2 times 1 is, does 2 equal negative 6? No, so what does that mean? Not a solution. This would not be a solution. What if it was yes? Then what would I do? If this worked, let's say we had negative 6 is equal to negative 6. You have to plug it into the other one. So if it's a solution, you have to check both of them. A lot of people only checked one, and it worked in the first but didn't work in the second one. So it has to work for both of them in order to be a solution. This one didn't work in the first one, so it's not a solution. Any questions?